Your knowledge of contract language is imperative.
You must know what a violation looks like if you wish to be active in its cessation.
It is important to understand that being active and knowledgeable affects your overall bargaining strength.
Together, we can forge a more militant NALC.
Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, the podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier, with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today we got the long-anticipated interviews with both Mike Caref and James Henry here on the show. I'm going to make the intros and outros identical so that you can listen to each and every episode and you can take them for what they are and use them to make your judgment. So, without further ado, if you're clicked on the Mike Caref one, you'll be listening to Mike Caref. If you're clicked on the James Henry one, you'll be listening to James Henry. Hopefully, you learned something valuable today, and I'll see you on the other side. We're just going to go down the list of questions submitted by listeners, and Mike Caref is going to be here, and he's going to answer every single one of these questions.
That's the plan.
Let's start with introduction, Mike.
Okay. I'm doing that myself.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself. Whatever you want to say
All
first before we start the question.
Well, my name is Mike Caref. I'm a letter carrier in the city of Chicago, Route 16 over there at 22nd Street Station currently. I am the business agent for the NELC in Region 3, which is the state of Illinois. I've been the business agent since 2014, since the end of 2014. I've been a letter carrier since May 28th of 1994. I've done anything and everything with the union and as a letter carrier, and I have a plan and a platform and ideas on what to do as the next president of the union, and let's see what you guys think.
All right. Now, before I start these questions, do you understand due process and understand this meeting?
Yeah, what's the
I'm just
process?
joking.
Oh, that's
yeah, I'm acting like it's yeah. All right.
Understand that these questions could be held against you up until including issues of discipline and removal?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll just start with the first one. There's no rhyme or reason. I just collected the questions as they came in, and I don't believe anything repeats. But if it does, I might accidentally say it. So, all right.
Okay.
And I didn't really edit them, so I'm gonna read them in their entirety. And for some of these, we kind of gotta interpret what they're trying to say, because not everyone was very clear in terms of context. So, first one off. Even though it's technically against policy, most letter carriers know it is not a real safety issue to wear and use one earbud. Management wants to play gotcha when they try to write carriers up for wearing earbuds, which is always an easy get for them. If a resolution is submitted at the convention to prove what carriers already know by assembling a team or something that wearing one earbud at a reasonable volume is not a safety issue, will you bargain with management for the policy to change regarding the use of earbuds and use of Bluetooth?
Yes. I don't know if we would have to do that, because I don't think it's written, I don't know if it's a universal rule that you can't have one earbud in, and I don't know, I'd have to study the language, either in the Employee Labor Relations Manual or wherever it would be, but I'm not so sure the language is so prohibited. I know a lot of post offices and a lot of districts have a policy about that, but I'm not sure if it's universal or not, but it may be. But either way, I agree with whoever wrote this question that, there's so many carriers and not me myself, you have one earbud in and you're still able to be aware of your surroundings. You're still able to be safe and, do your job diligently. I don't think it's a problem. I think we should be able to do that. Yes.
Awesome. Now, next question is, do you support publicly shaming USPS for lack of compensation, toxic work floors, and contract violations? And can NALC put together commercials to share online and to the media?
Yes and yes. The second thing would cost us money. You have to, budget that and see, how much money you want to spend on, any endeavor or whatever. But the first one, I think that you have to get leverage, and left up to their own devices, the Postal Service is killing us. They're working us out of a future and a livelihood by the way they're mismanaging the company. And I don't think you just sit back idly and let that happen. So, you try to get the public on your side, the media, like you said, shaming them, making sure the board of governors is aware of everything that's going on in the post office, and you try to figure out a way to get some change because, like I said, just left to their own devices, they've shown no inclination that they see anything wrong with the way that they're managing the company, and they're doing a horrible job of it. So I would say yes. As far as commercials, you're talking about, what the main thing I think is that we don't receive taxpayer money, but I also think that we should be putting forth our own agenda for what we think the future of the postal service should look like. And I think we have to look at a future that includes small parcels being a part, just like we have a mail monopoly and we have ownership of the mailboxes out there. What is our vision for the future of the postal service? And we would try to, present that to the public and try to make sure that the public is approving of having a postal service where the letter carrier, the uniform city letter carrier, is central to that delivery network, and get the more of the people to support that. And if commercials is one way we can help sway opinions, I'd be all for it. I just, like I said, I don't know the risk reward, the cost analysis, that kind of thing, but yeah, the concept is there.
Awesome. Next question is, obviously management benefits by letting us clog the system with grievances for the same violations over and over, which leads to improperly removed carriers and stewards not being compensated for very long periods, if ever. This allows management to intimidate, remain toxic, and ignore the contract. What needs to be done and what needs to change?
Well, I was gonna say the long term, but it needs to happen sooner than that. But what needs to happen is that, in order to be a manager or supervisor, as a qualifying factor, as a prerequisite to assume one of those positions, you have to agree and show that you can manage within the terms of the contract. I mean, that has to be a requirement. The employer enters into a contract with us, the National Association of Letter Carriers and all of the letter carriers out there, and then they hire people to run their company who have no care or concern whatsoever with the terms of the contract that they just entered into with us. And so that's what has to change. And either by something with the law, something with the contract, or just something with the mentality of the postal service, maybe their bonuses or, whatever, right? Like however you get there, but that has to change. And, being a manager and abiding by the terms of the contract, you can't have one without the other. I can't be a manager. I can't be a supervisor. I can't be a postmaster if I can't show. I mean, before they even get the job, there should be an aptitude test. There should be like a contract test. Do you know this? Do you know that? And then you have to show that you're able to abide by the terms, and that should be a prerequisite for the job and how we get there. There's a lot of different ideas, but I think that's the solution to that.
Now, you have a high position in our union. How do you explain your lack of results when it comes to our compensation, toxic management, and inability to have management honor the contracts that they have signed with us?
Well, the last two things I would disagree with. I think we've been very successful. So I mentioned at the beginning, I've been a business agent for 10 years, and we've been very successful in dealing with workplaces that, were previously toxic, and we were able to get results for the members by, having meetings, by having grievances, by being successful, by, working the Article 15 process and the, labor relations process, and getting the carriers together. We put out a ton of training on different things that you can do if you have a hostile work environment. How do you identify those things? Be specific with how you felt. Be specific with the incidents. We have what is it called? A supervisor harassment worksheet. Anyway, it's a worksheet that we give out to the carriers. We go in the post office. We just start handing it out to the carriers and say, identify any instance where a supervisor was trying to intimidate, threaten, bully, or harass you in any type of way, so that we can address these things. And so we've been pretty successful on that. The other thing I think was it contract compliance? What was the last thing?
Yeah, it's to have management honor the contracts they have signed with us.
Yeah, well, contract compliance, I got to tell you, I mean, I don't know if they're any better with contract compliance in my region than the other regions. But I know they pay out a lot more money to our members in my region than other regions. I mean, like in the city of Chicago, we have an automatic remedy of $2,500 every time management does not adhere to a grievance settlement or violates a previous cease and desist order, of which we probably have hundreds of those things on different things in the Chicago installation. And that didn't happen overnight. That happened with, many, many years and many different people attacking all these issues of contract compliance from many different angles, and us finally getting to that award. And I mean, our carriers, they get paid a lot of money based on not complying with the terms of the contract. Like, for example, if we had these issues with continuation of pay. Someone would get injured and the post office would not comply, like the person asked the question is saying. They don't comply with their responsibilities. They interrupt the person's pay. And we got it to the point where even if the person's claim ends up being overturned or denied by the Department of Labor, that person is still going to get that continuation of pay because the Postal Service was wrong for interrupting their pay. Now, normally you would not interrupt their pay, but if the claim is denied, you'd have to, pay the money back. But now we've gotten to the point with the grievance settlements, the carrier ends up making a whole lot more money. And even if the claim is denied, they're gonna get paid that money because the Postal Service was being stubborn and not doing what they're supposed to do, despite, multiple grievance decisions and cease and desist orders and, multiple, monetary remedies and things like that. So we've done pretty good on those last two things. The first thing, I wish I had more say and more control in national contract negotiations, but unfortunately, in our structure of our union, the president is over collective bargaining, and the president decides who they want to use within that process. And the president has not decided to use me within that process in any way, shape, or form. I couldn't tell you for sure that I would have done better, but I can just tell you that I wasn't involved in the process one way or another. So I don't think I can take responsibility for that. But
Your non-compliance contract, your settlements are notorious. I know that. They're very well known.
We've done pretty good, and I'm known throughout like management. Like they'll say that Mike Caref, you can't sign nothing with him, and I say, yeah, you can sign something, but if you sign something with me, you better be ready to adhere to what you signed for.
Yep.
And if you're not gonna do that, it's gonna be a problem. But I still, we've gone pretty far, but the strength of our union is always that we have a national contract and a national union, and the national union's inability to fix the problems in the contract and resolve those issues is what has really hurt us and everyone out there in our ability to, be successful in the grievance process. And it gets frustrating, but, we have within what we can control, which is our grievances and our outcomes and, taking our cases to arbitration and that kind of thing. We've been pretty successful, but national contract wise, I would agree. We have not been successful at all, but I just telling you, I haven't really been involved in that process.
And this one's
the president.
This one's gonna be long, kind of like your visit to Mount Clemens over here, Clarence Blaze.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a lot of questions here. Would you consider eliminating NALC jobs that don't impact the city letter carrier directly?
Yeah. I don't know. We have more people employed, if that's the word. More people working for the union now than ever. In a lot of ways, it's really served us well. I mean, the regional workers' compensation assistance is very valuable to our members to have that tool because it's complicated dealing with the Department of Labor and some of the things. So, I wouldn't want to cut them positions per se. I don't know. I would just promise that I will evaluate all the positions and see if we're being productive, if that's the right person in that job, and maybe we have to move some people around. Maybe we don't need that many positions. Maybe we need more positions. I don't really know. I'd have to get in there and work with all of the regional offices and see what it is, see what our needs are, and make sure that we have the appropriate people in the appropriate places. But I can tell you that we're not losing money, as a union. So you look at our finances, and so we bring in money. We have dues money, per capita, and then you have investments on the money that we have saved up, and then we get money for every member that is in the NELC health plan. So that's basically our three main sources of revenue. If you count all the money together that we're bringing in as far as revenue, minus what our current expenses are, we're making money. We're salting away more money every month, every year, every time frame. So, I definitely wouldn't be in a rush to cut positions and stuff like that. At least now, I mean, things could change real fast, but in the position that we're in right now, I wouldn't commit to cut positions. No.
All right. Now, do you think you would support criminal charges for management? For example, when manslaughter when their negligence causes death, and fraud when they do falsified rings, and etc.
That's an interesting one. I thought maybe the question was going to go in the way of like delay of mail and stuff. That's what I would like to see. I've seen letter carriers. I don't know if you've seen this, Josh, but we've had letter carriers get those tickets for like delay of mail. Like if you bring back mail on the back end or something,
Yep.
sometimes the inspector will show up and they give you a federal citation. It'll be like hundreds of dollars, and you have to try to go to court. You're being cited, and it's like a criminal statute or whatever. And the reality is, man, management delays mail all the time, and there's no accountability for that. The clock ring fraud, they should be fired. I don't know how we get there, but there's not as much, in my opinion, what I see, there's not as much time card fraud since the virtual time card that there used to be. It used to be much more rampant. But there's still some out there, you know what I mean? But, other things are not really criminal matters. They're workplace issues, and they have to be dealt with in the workplace, in my opinion.
Okay. Assuming you agree that recouping lost compensation to inflation since the 1970s is our best argument for a substantial pay increase in full COLAs, who will you get to do the math on that to make sure it's indisputable? And do you want branches to submit this request to National Convention for a vote?
Well, the last part, any branch can submit whatever they want to a resolution to the National Convention. The problem we've seen in the current president, at least, has not necessarily followed the resolutions of the supreme body of the union, which is from the convention. So, not to deter anyone from doing it, it's the right thing to do, and that's where we're supposed to set our bargaining goals. Ironically, this time when we go to convention, we're not going to have a chance to set our bargaining goals because when we went to the last convention, we didn't have a contract yet, and when we go to the next convention, which would be in August of 2026, the whole contract thing already started, the negotiations and all of that. So normally you set your bargaining goals prior to the start of negotiations. We're not going to have the chance to do that this time. I don't know if that's our strongest argument. I think it's definitely something that we would look at, but the law says that pay and compensation has to be comparable to the private sector of the economy of the United States. And I think that's the legal standard, and that's the standard we should base our main arguments on. And, right now, the most comparable employee out there in the private sector is a UPS driver. And UPS driver tops out a lot higher than us. They got free health insurance. They got free uniforms. They get to top pay within 4 years of becoming a driver. There's a lot of steps to become a driver, but nonetheless, once they become a driver within 4 years, they're at top pay, which for them right now, I think is like $47.50 average around the country, and it'll go up to $49 an hour by 2027. And we're significantly lower than that, especially at the bottom end of the pay scale. So I think that's our strongest argument. Of course, you put in inflation numbers and those type of things as well. Who would we get to do the math is, the economists, the actuaries, the people that we hire, the professional people that we hire to help us prepare for contract negotiations and possible interest arbitration. So.
That makes sense. All right. The Executive Council seems to regularly vote on important issues and items by secret ballot. I personally believe that as elected representatives, the membership has a right to know how they are voting on items and the positions they are taking and supporting. Would you support a resolution by the membership that banned the Executive Council from conducting votes in secret? And if not, please explain why you feel the practice is beneficial to the membership.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that, you'd want to propose a constitutional amendment, which I'm 100% in favor of the concept. I don't know why, you have Congress, you have C-SPAN, you have, everything is available. And then you have this executive council, which is the governing body of the union. We make decisions on behalf of the entire union, and members pay dues. Members are paying our expenses. Members are paying our salary. We're having these meetings, within the framework of leadership of the union, and it's a secret to the members of the union. I don't get that at all. I don't support that at all. Um, I would I would wonder how you would word that. There does need to be a time and a place, and I think there's something that they call executive session, which is kind of like the time and the place when the council wants to meet just by itself to kind of have it out a little bit, exchange words that you might not want to use publicly, that you could just be frank and, talk to your fellow council members. And I think there's a way to do that, but the business of the union and the discussions and the debates should be taking place in front of the membership, and the membership should have access to it. I mean, we don't even have access to the minutes from the executive council meeting. Not even the minutes. Where are they at? How would you know what transpired, what decisions were made? What was the discussion about? What was the items on the agenda? You just don't even know. So I can tell you, if I'm the president of the union, we're going to do the executive council a lot differently than the way we do it now. But as far as the question of how you would you be in favor of changing the Constitution? I would be. I just don't know the exact wording or how you want to go about doing that.
I was wondering if either candidate has plans to try and get information to all regions on grievances and problems nationwide, so we are all fighting on the same front instead of hearing that each district is different, so we can't file the grievance the same way they did.
Yeah, I'm for that. We have a national contract, and we should have coordination of activities, grievance activity nationwide. And so you negotiate a contract, and then you enforce the terms of the contract. And the way you enforce the terms of the contract is you have business agents in all regions, and the business agent is responsible for making sure that everyone is trained, and the business agent is responsible for interpreting the contract within their region. So I'm not saying there's not going to be any differences within the regions, because there would be, because the Constitution is written that way. But you're still looking at a national contract. And so we have, for example, a contract administration unit. And the contract administration unit, although they meet over Zoom, all of the members of the contract administration unit are people that work in Washington, D.C., either our elected officers or our staff members out in D.C., but nobody in the regional office is part of that. And so when you're talking about coordinating activities, how are we going to address a particular issue or something that's going on out there with letter carriers? Either we're going to file a national grievance and we're going to address it that way, or we're going to coordinate our activities on how we're going to win a particular issue. You look at what we did during the NRP, when they were taking injured letter carriers, and this goes back, 10 or 15 years or whatever, probably 15 years. We had injured letter carriers and other crafts, and what they were doing was they were sending them home with no work available. And so we came up with a strategy, and we implemented teams, and we had meetings, and we studied, and we did all these things so we could coordinate our activities so that wouldn't happen, and so we could win that argument. And we ended up winning. We started winning the arbitration hearings. We started getting the language that we needed. We started forcing management to change their behavior and to find work for our members that were injured on the job. And so that's just an example of when the union works together in concerted activity like we should be doing, we can be successful. And I think that's definitely what we should be doing, for sure.
Now, of the 185,000 active members eligible to vote on the proposed tentative agreement, only 89,000 actually voted the vote. What methods would you use to try and capture the 96,000 non-voting contract members to vote for you as president?
Oh, to vote for you as president?
Yeah, I think they're suggesting that they're comparing the tentative agreement vote to the president's vote, and they're saying how would you capture the remaining members that seem to be apathetic to voting?
Well, for like the national election next year that we'll be having for all of our officer positions, including the president, that we're doing like the fall of 2026, that's going to involve the active carriers and the retired members. So it's a bigger pool of people. It's closer to 280 to 290,000 members total that potentially could vote. Of course, traditionally we've had turnouts of maybe about 60,000 or something, total people that have voted. So the vast majority of the members do not vote. And, we saw a bigger turnout for the vote on the tentative agreement earlier this year, but still, those numbers are still down versus the number of members that we have. And so how would I try to get more people involved? The campaign I'm trying to run, and, it's been successful in some places, and other places are still kind of waiting for it to catch on. But I'm looking to have like precinct captains, so somebody in every branch, every post office, who's working the campaign, getting out information, getting feedback from the members, answering questions that they have and stuff like that. When we're doing fundraising, we want people to walk around the post office, talk to their coworkers if they can, and get them on board. And then when it comes time to vote, now you have this, organized, mobilized machine, and you wouldn't just use it for the purposes of voting, but I think that is a valuable thing that, if members of our union are participating in the electoral process, that means they're participating in their union. That means they value the outcome and they care about what's going on within their union. They're more likely to, do something like, let's say if we're having a rally or, things like that, if they're involved to that extent. So, that's part of our strategy in this campaign. And, hey, we need your help. So if you want to help us out and within your branch or your post office, just, contact the campaign, careforprez.org, and we'd love to have you on board. CAREF, the number 4, PREZ.org. And there's a spot there where you can volunteer. I see what I was saying.
Should letter carriers have a right to strike?
Yeah, there's nothing about our job that is different from any other, unionized workforce that should have the right to strike. The fact of the matter is we don't, and we do have something that, other people that have the right to strike don't have, and that's the right to go to interest arbitration over the terms of our contract, and the standard being the pay and benefits comparable to those in the private sector of the economy of the United States. And so, that to me has value. And we haven't really exercised that and used that as leverage in the way that we probably should have, especially recently. But would I like to have the right to strike as well? Yeah. Do I think we should? I think we should. But we'll see how that plays out with the law and stuff like that. The last time they went on a strike, or, we went out on strike, it was a wildcat strike. It wasn't sanctioned by the union. And 2, it was not legal. So I don't know if that's, if that should scare us. You know what I mean?
Now, should locals be told to refrain from certain settlements from the national, like settling on cease and desist agreements?
Nah, the only thing that you would tell a local branch, as the business agent here in my region, I work with all the branches. Obviously, I oversee the grievance process, and the branches control the grievance at the first 2 steps, the informal and the formal A. And so, I don't never tell the branch, do what you want, but I also don't tell the branch, do it this way, exactly the way I want them to do it. We're working together. We're trying to enforce the terms of the contract, and they have particular things they're trying to accomplish within their branch. The only settlements that, they cannot make, in my opinion, are settlements that go against the terms of the contract. If it does not violate the terms of the national agreement, then I think that local union is free to enter into that settlement. They are a representative of the National Association of Letter Carriers and a representative of that grievant or grievance. I think they have their right.
Now, what is your opinion on area wage colas since they have high expense areas like Hawaii and California?
Yeah, my position is that, we've discussed this at probably every convention I've ever been to. I've been going to the national convention since the year 2000. And every 2 years we have a convention, and every time this comes up, I thought it was really close when it came up in Boston in 2024. And obviously Boston is one of those high cost of living areas. And maybe that, affected it, or maybe just the fact that our pay is not as high. When we were making more money, when we were all on table 1, there wasn't such a clamor, I don't think, for the, area wage, because it was like, all right, we're all doing okay, and a letter care is a letter care, and the solidarity of it and the fact that we have a national contract kind of outweighed, even if you thought it was unfair that your dollar went further if you were in certain parts of the country versus others. But now with the table two and the low starting wage and how long it takes for you to get into the middle class, and then if you're in these high cost of living areas, it's just impossible to afford to buy a house or just live the basic middle class life that you assume this job would allow you to have. And it just doesn't anymore. And so I think the membership is going to consider once again some type of area wage or whatever. I mean, we would have to either change the law to have some type of territorial COLA or some type of burden on the Postal Service to pay. Like the federal workforce, generally, everyone doesn't get paid the same. It depends on where you live at. And so we could try to change the law where that type of thing would be applied to the Postal Service, or you can negotiate a contract with the Postal Service that applies a different wage depending on what post office you're being hired on. But that's all depends on what the delegates want to do in 2026 at the convention. I'm as the president of the union. You guys set the bargaining goals, and I try to enact them. So however which way you want to go, I can see it either way. I can see going to some type of area wage to make it fairer, or I can see saying, "Hey, a letter carrier is a letter carrier." And I'll tell you this: if the members of the union want to say, like we've done in the past, a letter carrier is a letter carrier and not have an area wage, that's fine. I'm going to make sure that I negotiate a contract that compensates letter carriers in every part of the country sufficiently where they can live. And so you're just going to have to raise the wages for everybody. And then we're a union. We're united, right? We're together. We don't negotiate a contract for, like I say, if the members want us to take that position that a member's a member, and it doesn't matter where, we're going to negotiate the same contract. That contract better be sufficient for all of our members. That's how we got to look at it.
Should the national get involved in local lawsuits if they are being sued?
If who's being sued?
I believe they're referring to branches somehow.
Well, I don't know exactly what the question is, but I will tell you that normally we interpret let's say the National Labor Relations Board. Someone makes a charge. You have a duty to represent. The local union didn't perform its legal duty to represent a member, right? Or even just a letter carrier, someone who's not a member. Normally, we've interpreted that the national union will assist, and we normally do through our law firm, Corn, Weiss and Simon. Will assign an attorney to assist because the national union, if you look in the contract under Article 1, the national union is the one that has the responsibility, for the contract. And then you look at like the Postal Reform Act, not the Postal Reform Act, the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970, and then where they identified the different unions legally responsible. So the National Association is legally responsible. What branch XYZ does is in some ways, in a lot of ways, a reflection of the National Association of Letter Carriers. So we already do that where we assist the branches and that type of thing. Now, if you're talking about like civil court or something like that, look, I don't know. That is kind of getting too far into the weeds for me.
Yeah.
That'd have to be a case by case decision.
Now, how important is the one man, one vote, even though during the last negotiation the National misunderstood why the contract was voted down? Do you understand this question? Because I'm a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. It's mixing things up. So the union used to, it was known as one man, one vote. Now we would probably say one person, one vote. But back in the 70s at some point, they used to vote for the president and officers at the convention. And the one man, one vote is just a concept that every member gets a vote. And so now the nominations will take place at the conventions. But, the ballot goes out to every member. Every member has a chance to vote in the elections. And what this person is referring to is that we had a referendum of sort, it's called a referendum. It's an election of sorts. But we had a referendum on the tentative agreement and everyone had a chance to vote and we voted it down. And then the president went and implemented the terms anyway, which I thought was the most disgraceful thing that he did. It's something that I will never forgive him for. And I don't think the vast majority of the members of our union are going to forgive him for that, no matter which way you voted. Even people that voted in favor of the contract, we're still a democratic union. If my brothers and sisters decided as a group, as a collective, that we did not want that tentative agreement and that we wanted you to take our case in front of an interest arbitrator to fight for better terms, and you decided that you knew better than all of us and you're just going to go ahead and accept the terms anyway, I think that's unforgivable. That's unforgivable for a president of our union who works for us, who works for the members of the union. So, what was the value of our vote? I don't know. We took a stand, right? I think that means something. We let our voices be heard. I think that means something. But I was as frustrated as everybody and as angry as everybody when the president turned around and just implemented the terms anyway. I hated that he did that. I really do.
Yeah, I think we all did.
Yeah,
Well,
it's terrible.
now, will David Noble affect the elections if he runs with his past clean slate ticket?
I don't think so. I don't think that. Look, I respect Brother Noble for some of the things that he says, some of the ideas he has. I'm certainly not against the brother at all, but me and most of the members of the union don't think that he's a legitimate candidate to be our president. And, people that when you run with somebody, you're saying, I think this person should be the president of our union. And so I'm already kind of questioning your judgment if you think that Brother Noble should be the president of our union, because I don't think he's qualified. And not that he's not smart enough, but I think there's a lot more things that go into being the president, and he doesn't check nearly enough of the boxes for me to consider him and take him seriously. And I think most of the members of the union have felt that way over the last, 3-4 elections. So no, I don't think he'll have a big impact on it.
Could all three, Henry, Caref, and Noble, run on one slate, or is it not needed to beat the establishment?
Look, every time I go around and talk to people, I try to kind of break this down for them. And it's not something you think of naturally, but the president of the union is the most important decision you're going to make. You can't have, those 28 positions. You don't have 28 presidents. That's not how our Constitution reads. The president is the decision maker. The president makes the appointments. The president is over collective bargaining. The president is over the executive council. The president is over the convention, the supreme body of the union. The president is the face of our organization, to the media, the Congress, who you vote for the president. Like, hey, let's make sure we get the right person as the president. Is there a role for everybody else? Yes, there is. There's plenty of roles out there, either it be with the national union, locally, in the region, and inside your post office. Look, there's a lot of things. People ask me, well, if you're not the president, what are you going to do for the union? I'm like, whatever my union wants me to do. You know what I mean? There's a million roles you can play, and they're all valuable, but none are the big decision, and none are more valuable than that, who you elect as the president. So, no, David Noble and James Henry and I cannot all be the president. We cannot do that unless we're going to somehow change the Constitution prior to the next election.
So, this person, I can't really... Their question, I'm just going to break it down a little bit more simpler. They're trying to get your opinion on management wanting all load features to be considered street time credit. Do you think this seems to be in conflict with handling spurs in the office?
Yeah, I would like to see a whole overhaul of the spurs thing. I see carriers do it all different kind of ways. Some carriers will try to get it in the case somehow, but it's really not enough space. Some carriers will tray them up, kind of thing. Some use a bunch of different tubs. Some take them out to the vehicle and use the load truck feature kind of thing. I think that obviously we have the right, and we get time credit for casing the spurs and tying down the spurs in the office. It's really not enough time because they're so, they don't really fit, you know what I mean? So it takes a little longer than 8 spurs per minute and 70 spurs per minute to tie them down for sure. So I'd rather see a better system that works, but certainly based on the current rules, we have the right to that. We have the right to that time credit in the office. And we should make sure that we're getting it. No doubt.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now,
and look, if you're familiar with the route and you take all the spurs out there and you sort them at the vehicle, it's doable. But if you're not familiar with the route, it is not doable. You can't sort all them things at the vehicle. It's whatever. That 1 through 6 does not work for the the number of relays that you have and dividing the spurs up. It's not going to work.
Assuming we're still in negotiations when either candidate wins, what would you ask for in terms of a pay structure? What would the one pay table look like since table one is outdated? And what is your, this is separate, but it's from the same person. And what is your arbitration win rate?
You think about that second one, I'm not even sure, but the, the first question, it's going to be hard to get back to table one. I mean, President Renfro kind of pulled a fast one on us, or I don't know how you want to describe it, but he was going around talking about consolidation of pay tables, and we're like, great, we're all going to get into table one, and then everyone gets into table two, and it's like, wait a second, that wasn't the consolidation we had in mind. That's a significant downgrade. So, but now we're here, and you got to negotiate a contract. Your starting point is always the current contract that you're trying to improve upon to get you another contract. I would look at $30 an hour starting pay, and we'll see what the exact numbers would be at the time when you go to negotiate a contract. But I don't think that our starting pay can justifiably be any less than starting pay for a clerk. And right now, level 6 clerk under the APW pay chart, updated September the 6th of 2025, is $28.26. It's over $28 an hour, starting pay for PTF. And our starting pay for PTFs is close to $26, less than $26. There's a $2.32 difference. And I think everyone would agree we got to be making at least $1 or $2 more than the clerks, right? I mean, that only makes sense. And so that's why I say $30 or somewhere around there would be the starting pay. And the top pay, we would be looking at the top pay of what UPS drivers get. And right now that's $49 an hour, or at least by the time we negotiate our contract, it'll be $49 an hour. So, that's what I'll be looking at as what I think would be a fair pay scale that we should, negotiate and try to come to terms with. Oh, the other question, it was asking about my arbitration record. I have no idea. It's not great. I mean, I've done pretty good in front of certain arbitrators, for whatever reason. I think that there's a learning curve, and so in the beginning, you probably lose a couple that you wish you had back. I've won some that I didn't think I was going to win, kind of thing. But overall, I don't think that the record is what is important. I think what's important is that you're able to win significant arbitration awards that set the standard for letter carriers going forward. So, like I referred, and now that I've been a business agent for 10 years, I do arbitrations. I just did one a couple weeks ago. Some procedural Article 15 issues that the Postal Service was trying to sneak in, and I wanted to make sure that we defended our position on those. So I did two cases on one day in front of an arbitrator a couple weeks ago, but I usually don't do the arbitrations. I'm the business agent, so I kind of oversee the thing, and we have advocates, and we, kind of collaborate and work together. And so I've never been a big fan of looking at the record. I think that what did you accomplish? It's like, for example, they count things as wins in like the arbitration database. So if you wanted to, let's say you thought the fair outcome was $1 million for the carriers, right? And you got $10 for the carriers. They would count that as a win because you got $10 for the carriers. But to me, that'd be a loss. We didn't accomplish our goal there. So, every arbitration hearing is different. Your goals are different, and they're not all as significant as the next one. Some of them are just a matter. Let's say somebody thinks they should be paid for a day of sick leave, whatever. To me, that's not that significant. You win some, you lose some. You go in there. Either they're going to get paid for the sick leave, or they're not going to get paid for the sick leave, and they're going to be able to save 8 hours of leave, right? I mean, it's kind of like an even exchange. It's not that big a deal one way or another. Of course, you want the right outcome, but, it's not as significant. Other grievances are very, very significant. Certain issues that you just have to win, that kind of thing. So I know we've made some serious wins in arbitration, either me as the advocate or just, me as the business agent. So I'm proud of the work that we've done. We can always do better. We're definitely always trying to get better, no doubt about it. But whoever is asking the question, I don't think you should put a whole lot of stock into what someone's record is per se.
If you don't mind, I'd like to insert my opinion, even though this is technically about you. And
Go ahead.
you're welcome to comment on it too.
Yeah.
But I just want to let that individual know that one thing you should consider when you're talking about win rates, whether it's arbitration, step E, or anything, I think somebody who's legitimately trying to fight for the letter carrier no matter what, fight for the interests of the carriers, will oftentimes take to arbitration or to step B a case that they know will lose, but is just at the heart of the letter carrier. And the letter carriers just really have a vested interest in winning that case. And sometimes, you're just going to have to let your win rate go down because you're trying to represent them to the best of your ability. I don't necessarily put too much stock in win rate for that reason.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'll tell you something else. When you're the decision maker, so like I'm the business agent, I'm the decision maker. I don't want to say I don't want to win them all, if that makes sense. The arbitrator represents both parties. And what you don't want to have happen is to win an arbitration that's not all that significant and then lose one that's very, very significant, or even win three that are not that significant and then lose one that's very, very significant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anytime you go in front of an arbitrator, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And you don't dedicate the same energies and resources to every single grievance. But also, like you said, just because I think I have less than a 50% chance of winning does not mean I'm not going to go forward. What is the risk reward? If someone's job is on the line, if I got a 10% chance, I'm going forward. If $1 million is on the line, if I got a 2% chance, I'm going forward. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I agree with you with kind of what you're saying. The win-loss record it doesn't mean nothing to me. It's just not a good indication of how good you are at of winning the arbitration process. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think it plays a role, but it's not as important as a lot of people put. But so moving on to the next question.
I'm not below 500 or nothing like that, though. I can tell you that.
Now, is it mandatory to sign a non-disclosure for negotiations?
I don't know where that came from. I heard that mentioned by a couple of people during the last round of contract negotiations. I've been meaning to go back and reread real thoroughly the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970. There's a lot of pages in there. A lot of it's about finances and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure there's nothing like that in the law about a non-disclosure agreement. I don't know why we don't live stream the damn thing, But,
Yeah.
I don't know. I would not, unless I had to for some legal reason, I wouldn't be signing no non-disclosure agreement. I like to tell the Postal Service, hey, give me your best offer because I'm going to run and tell everyone what you think of them, what you have to say.
Exactly. Now, when are we going to get paid what we're worth? We're called essential during COVID, but when it came time for raises, we got scraps while UPS dock workers and law enforcement walked away with historic contracts. We delivered for this country through a pandemic and got nothing to show for it. Are you ready to fight for what we deserve? 50 plus at top step and 30 plus to start. No more CCAs. Bring back the postal exam and raise the bar again.
I couldn't have said it no better. And I think earlier in the conversation, I was saying it should be between 30 and 49. So right around, what this person is saying. I'd love for the job to be desirable go back to the days when, people stood in line for the job. You kind of laugh now, but the 473 battery test, it turned out to be a pretty good determining factor for who was capable and who could kind of do this job. And we want our letter carriers to be professionals. We want them to be capable. Of course, we believe anyone can succeed, and as a union, we're going to help you. As, an individual, we're going to help every individual to succeed as a letter carrier. But the whole thing's broken. Like there's no qualifications for the job. The pay sucks. The service is not there. The requirements to be in management is even lower than anything. There's just no standard whatsoever. So I would like to go back for sure to a time where the letter carrier job had pay and benefits that were very desirable, and there be some type of standard for who can get the job. And then you go back to, we used to feel like you won the lottery when you got this job. Woo-hoo. And to the point they also made about the pandemic, I mean, God, that was heart wrenching. Where it's like you're essential, and we're like, really? Oh yeah, we're gonna take care of you. We thought we might get some type of hazard pay. Like, no, you have a collective bargaining agreement, and then we go to negotiate the damn collective bargaining agreement, and we get the same shit we were getting before the pandemic. It's like, wait, I thought we were essential. The job's gotten so much more dangerous. It's anyway. There's a lot in that kind of question that I love, so I'll just leave it at that.
If elected, can you work with the other members of the previous administration you have disagreed with? And if you lose, what's next? Would you return the carrying mail?
So the first part of that question, I believe I can work with anybody. I've proven it. When I ran for business agent in 2014, the person I ran against, or who ran against me, however you want to look at it, was a brother named Tony Hudson. And Fred Rolando was the president at the time. He called me, said, congratulations, you won the election. But Tony Hudson's going to be working with you in the office as one of the RAAs. I said, great. Thanks for letting me know, brother. President makes those calls. And so, set up a meeting with Tony. We hashed out a few things. We didn't come to blows or nothing, but, we had to talk about some things that I didn't like that he did. He didn't like that I did during the campaign, because campaigns can be real contentious. But, we got to working together because, and I believe this to be the case. There's some people that disagree on this, but I believe that at least 90 to 100% of your people that are in positions with the union are there for the right reasons. They're not there for selfish reasons. They're there because they want to see what's best for their brothers and sisters, and we're a fraternal organization. So I'm very, very comfortable and very excited to work with whoever the union wants to elect for the various positions around the country and the various officer positions and all of that. I'm humbled to just be considered as one of those people, and whoever all those other people are, I'm gonna work with them. I'm gonna, try to utilize what their strengths are, try to, work collaboratively with that group of people. And I think I've shown I can do that, and I look forward to doing that. People that I run against, people that are, currently in there, whatever, whoever those people may be, I'm sure I'll be able to work with them. And the more diverse and the more different, kind of, factions or the differing opinions and things like that are part of that collective. I think that makes us stronger. I look forward to having some disagreements, and I disagree with people all the time. It's people disagree with me all the time. Sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm right. I think that that's very healthy to have that type of dynamic and that type of relationship. And when you go into an election and you're saying, I want to elect all like-minded people, all people that think the same, I think that's a big mistake for our union. I think we should trust the members of the union to vote for the people who they see fit. And me as the president, my job is to work with all of them to make our union stronger. And I think I can do that. And if I lose the election, not a problem, brothers and sisters. You're not hurting my feelings. I'm ready and able to serve you as the president if that's what you want me to do. But if you got somebody better in mind, have at it. I do have a route in the city of Chicago. I love delivering mail. I'm sure that my local union will be dragging me in to do this and do that. I'd be more than willing to help them out, help out my region. I love doing arbitration. I love doing training. So
Route 16, right?
Yeah, Route 16.
How many stops do you have?
I think it's about 800, something like that. It's
Holy
it's not like one of these routes that I've had forever because I transferred a couple of times. So I came in Chicago, you have citywide bidding. And with citywide bidding, it means that there's two steps. So the people in the station get first dibs on a route, and if they don't want it, then it goes citywide. So I knew when I bid the 22nd Street that I was going to get probably one of the worst routes. So it's not like a juice or nothing, but I like it. It's flat. It does not have a lot of stairs, which I love. It's got a lot of delivery. I got a wire cage and a orange pumpkin, with a lot of parcels, a lot of deliveries. It's a lot of different blocks and that kind of thing, but
Yeah, but does it have one of those good Chicago foods on it, though?
It's not great, but it's really close to Chinatown. There's a lot of great places over there. On the route itself, there's this little kind of like hot dog stand, which is it's average. It's all right, but there's within striking distance, there's plenty of great spots.
All right.
Great spots over there.
If elected, would you consider bringing back the union podcast that read the postal record? Many carriers work long hours and don't always have time to read the magazine.
Yeah, Somebody asked President Renfro that question on his latest podcast that came out this week. And he said that they're working on doing that already, something with a technological type glitch or something. He didn't really go into detail, but yeah, I think that's surprisingly valuable to the members. I think it's cool when the person reads it himself, or their self, if you wrote an article and then they ask you to read your own article kind of thing, or sometimes they bring in different, people to read them um, yeah, I thought that, letter carriers, like the first question we started off with, right? You got one AirPod or
Yep.
whatever in your ear and you're just listening to stuff all day to kind of keep you company out there. And, it's a good way to quote read the postal record without having to take the time and sit down and read it. So yeah, that's definitely something we should make available to the membership.
Next question is, in the postal record, I read about the Leadership Academy. 4 long weeks for small branches like mine, that sounds like a huge financial burden. I would have loved to attend, but the cost is overwhelming to my branch. What's your plan to make vital training like this truly accessible to all carriers, not just those from large branches?
Well, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry this person didn't know this, and there's still time this year to apply for next year's Leadership Academy. I think the deadline is September the 29th or September 27th, something like that. But the National Union covers all your costs for the
That's what I
Leadership
thought.
Academy. Yeah, the National Union covers your wages, your expenses, and there's food, there when you get there. So that's a great benefit to any member of the union. Hopefully and we don't, the disadvantage, the downside to the Leadership Academy is you can only pick a certain number of people. And so traditionally we've had, 1 or 2 classes per year and you have 30 students in the class. So you have 2 per region. About 4 years ago, we started doing our own Leadership Academy in Region 3. And we try to keep the cost down for the branches. I mean, we actually do most of the classes on Sundays and holidays and stuff like that. And it's been very successful, and it just we normally have maybe like 20 people in the class, but that's, our region, we can only send 4 people to the National Leadership Academy every year, but then we have our own Leadership Academy, which it mirrors it, but it's a little bit different, and it's got a local flavor, and you kind of meet people and network with people that are a little bit closer, geographically, and we have projects because you're at home, so you can, you're not away, you can do these things while you're at home and in your home area. So anyway, we've been doing that, and that's given us the opportunity to get more people into that type of training, and they found it to be very valuable, and people really like it. So
Now,
I'd like to do more Leadership Academy training all around the country to kind of expand that thing out. But
what
that
about
is,
what about things like Formal 8 and beyond and all that? Does National
Yeah.
pay for all trainings, or is that just for leadership?
So, like Formally and Beyond, no. Formally and Beyond is paid for by the individual branch. So that might be a better example.
Yeah, I was
We
going to
do
say,
our
let's
own-
twist the context of this question to
Yeah.
fit the format of making that type of training more accessible.
So we do that already, and I would encourage other regions to do it as well. We do a Formal 8 training once a year. We have a facility. Either we do it at our union offices in Lyle, Illinois. We're in the Carpenters Union building. Anyway, they have facilities. Or we go to, there's a UAW facility in Ottawa, Illinois, where they have, you can stay there. You have training rooms there. You have a cafeteria there. Kind of the same thing where you can go away for the training. And it's a 1 week training, and, we bring in people, and we have it's not exactly the same as Formula A and Beyond, but the concepts are the same, and we have the networking, and we teach people, how to do the Formula A process and get good at it. And it's a pretty, it's still a cost to the branch. I mean, the branch gets 2/3 of the dues money, just so you guys know. There's some branches out there, very few, that are, they call them minimum dues branches, and minimum dues means they don't pay any local dues. They just pay dues to the National Union, and so they don't collect any local dues. But that's a rarity. That's like 1 or 2%, I think, of the membership. But everybody else is in a local branch where 2/3 of your dues money is going to the local branch, and so the local branch does need to invest in its people. But of course, the local branch is its own entity, and you don't necessarily control how the members of that branch want to spend their money. But we try to do training, and I would encourage everyone to do this, which is local, geographical, where we, like we'll leave the regional office and travel around the region and put on different trainings. A lot of regions do different things like that, but I think that's very valuable because you can get that training at a really low cost to members, and we try to do things locally. Like our Formal A class, that costs significantly less than if you were to send someone to Formal A and beyond. And I'm not saying, I don't know what the reason is, because they like the training or because it's cheaper, but I've noticed in my region, there's not a lot of applicants for the Formal A and beyond anymore, and we get a lot of applicants for our local training. And I think it's, they like it, and it's cheaper. You know what I mean?
All right, so I'd like to know how Caref believes he will be effective at being president without support. He chose to run without a slate. He's the only man who does his own arbitration still, so it's believed his own regional office does not support him. He has also been on the executive board longer than the rest of the candidates. He has none of their support. They have voiced that. Isn't being a lame dunk president not better than being a corrupt president? How is he going to overcome this? Because it takes more than one person to fix the process or application of the process, and more than one person got us into this mess.
Okay, so that was a nice question there, but this is a misguided question, man. First of all, I'll tell you, in 2022, I was probably the main person, but I certainly was not the only person that had some questions about Brian Renfro's ability to be our president. And the conventional wisdom at the time amongst the people that I discussed this with was, it's okay because there's 28 of us at the table, and we'll make sure that, there's checks and balances on the decision-making process of the president. And that turned out to not be true at all. And it's really not supported by the Constitution. Now, a decent person, would operate in that manner collaboratively and make sure that their ideas are in tune with the rest of the group, right? But if a person wanted to, they as the president have the authority, as we saw last year last couple of years in the collective bargaining process. President Renfro, ran through that process in his way, without agreement from anyone on the executive council or even the membership of the union. So, to say that we just need a bunch of people to come together and it doesn't matter who the president is, it really matters who the president is. And the president is the one that sets the agenda and how that collaborative, if they're that type of person, which I am, collaborative decision making process goes forward. To say that the people in my region don't support me is, man, that's 1,000% false. I guarantee you that when you see the vote tally from Region 3, it will be significantly in my favor. I guarantee you that. And I'm just not talking smack or whatever. I just, that is the reason why I'm running for president, because people that know me the best really have faith and think that I could make a good president of the union. And so that kind of gives me the confidence, or, gives me the thought that maybe I could do this, because it is a daunting task. And the same is true for the executive council. I have a lot of friends on the executive council. I've been there 10 years. I'm not exactly happy with everything that we do, and some of the decisions that we make I do not like, and I express my opinion like everybody else, but I respect those people on the council, and the majority respect me as well. Some of them don't, actually, but that's, I can't make them. What can I tell you? Sometimes I'm too much for some people, I guess. But I think that what is a fact is that I can work with anybody. And when you talk about having a slate, I just really don't like the concept of one person. Because how do you decide who's on that slate? So if the members of the union are not electing the people on the slate, that means that you, as the candidate for president, are deciding who should be on that slate. And then you're telling the members of the union, vote for all of these people on this slate. So not only do I think I should be the person who should be the president, but I also know who should be all of your other 27 officers, that represent you. And I don't look at it like that. I look at it like there's all these different positions. The most significant one is the president, and who the members want to elect for the other positions is good with me, as long as we have good qualified candidates in the other any other positions. And I'm very confident that we will have, candidates, and I'm not trying to, run somebody against somebody else that's already a qualified candidate just to say that I have a candidate, or I can get someone in there who's going to rubber stamp all of my ideas. I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't think that's good for the union. I think we're stronger when we have disagreements, and we're stronger when we work collaboratively, with people who may disagree. And that's fine. Because like I said, we're a fraternal organization. We're all in this for what's best for the members of the union. And, like I said before, I'm happy to get in there and work with whoever is elected for the other positions.
Do you feel that you would get less criticizing from some CLC members if you did not run against Henry within the CLC and instead run for some other position in the CLC and not branching off on your own?
Well, I don't know. It's not, look, I don't have any desire to run for any particular position. I'm just trying to have the most, I don't say impact, like how do you change things, right? And, I think I changed a lot for the people in Region 3 when I became the business agent in 2014. I think we've been successful in a lot of things, but quite frankly, what's really holding us back as a union, all of us, the people in Region 3 and all over the place, is, the poor contracts that we've negotiated, is all of the problems with the union, the national union. And so the president is the person that can have the most impact. And so I'm interested in helping out the union as much as I can, and where I think I can be of most help is as the president. And that doesn't mean that, there's not other positions out there, but this is where I think I can be of use to the union. And if that's not the case, then there's, whoever is, put it like this, if I'm not the president, whoever is the president can appoint me to whatever position they think I can be valuable in, and I would be happy to serve the union in that position, if that makes sense.
So this next person, I'm going to kind of summarize it. They are a carrier who just wants advice from each one of you guys, and I think they wanted particular advice from you. And in this question, they're asking, as someone who is still interconnected with the workroom floor, considering that you still go back to your routes sometimes, how strict are you when it comes to following the M41 and any other carrier duties? Do you check your truck fully? Do you fill out all the forms completely? Or do you think that there should be some leeway in terms of implementing all the handbooks and manuals?
I would say that, I probably fail at a lot of things. I'm definitely no expert in the M41. I'm generally familiar with it. I'm more interested, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. I'm more interested in serving the customer than making sure that I'm, dotting my I's and crossing my T's as far as the M41 manual. I will, like this, there's certain things they say you shouldn't do or whatever. I'll do those things if it's in service of the customer. That's the way I feel about it. I think that's what our role is out there. That's my job when I put on that uniform, is to serve the customers, and that's what I believe in. And so, I try to do the job the right way. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to tell you that I do everything the right way. But what I do make sure I do is provide the best possible service, to the customers once I put that uniform on and I clock in on the MDD.
Mike Caref, will you run with a separate slate like a CLC, or not organize a slate and run alone?
Right now I'm just running for president. I may get to a point, well, I'll say this, there's 28 positions that are up next year. 15 of those are business agents around the country. There is no scenario where I'm going to tell the people, who should be their business agent. There's people I like, and I like the way they handle business. And I say, man, you guys should really check this person out. But that's your call. You know what I mean? I'm not going to try to have undue influence. And quite frankly, over the years, when you've seen people running in a particular region, whether they're like when I ran in 2014, I was not on the national slate or ticket or whatever. Who cares? The members in my region voted for me because they thought I was the best person for the job. Or they could have voted for Tony if they thought, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it has that much of an impact in the election. And I don't think it's my place, as a letter carrier in Chicago to tell you guys in California or Florida Alaska, who your business agent should be. So I'm not going to do that. As far as the other 12 positions, there's a possible that I would have, people that I would run with, or people that I would say, hey, I recommend you vote for these people as well. I think they're good people in the position, but I'd rather not really. I'd rather let the members of the union make their selections. I just want to make sure that we have enough qualified candidates, but we'll see how it plays out. There's still a lot of unknown of who's going to be running for all the different positions. We don't really even know who's going to be all the candidates for president. And we certainly don't know the candidates for all the other positions. So I'm trying to keep an open mind about all of that. And the main thing, I think, is if I can do all of my own fundraising. Traditionally, the reason why people have a slate is because you have to come up with a lot of money if you want to have a national mailing that goes out in every mailbox, which I do. And I think it's important because that's where we conduct the election. We conduct it via mail. And if you can't get in people's mailbox, you're probably not going to be a legitimate candidate. And so I will need to fundraise a significant amount of money and work with so many different people to get that accomplished versus the other method is what slates or people have done is they form a slate of candidates and everyone pitches in a certain amount of money and that's how they form their slate and that's how they run their candidacy. I'd like to have, hundreds of people working together on the fundraising to make sure that I'm a legitimate candidate and that I can, have my ideas out there and then let the members of the union pick who they want after that happens.
Mike, the money settlements in your area of Chicago have been fruitful. Will you try to get settlements like that nationally?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. So I believe that the grievance settlements, I want every single branch in the country. We say nationally, yeah, I would love for every branch in the country to have the greatest settlements, pay the carriers the most money, just, hurt management as most you possibly can when they violate the contract, because I think that gives the national union leverage. Now, my role as the national president is not to do that nationally to the post office, but to take the leverage that I'm getting from all of those settlements to show that the process is not working, that it doesn't serve the postal service, that you're wasting the ratepayers' money on all these payouts, and you have to fix the system. So my role is to try to get a fix contractually for all letter carriers because we negotiate a national contract. And so if the language in Article 15 of the grievance procedure doesn't work right now, how can we get some language that does work? If the structure of the postal service doesn't work right now, how can we change that structure to make it work? And those big payouts and those settlements and, the millions of dollars like we're getting in Chicago and some other places around the country, that is great leverage when you enter into those discussions. So that would be my concept on that.
One more question and then we move on to the next segment, which is short. So
Double jeopardy.
Yep, yeah, exactly. So do you have a specific plan to get the grievance backlog moving? And generally speaking, at what point do you pursue labor charges against management?
Well, if we were going to pursue that, we probably should have done it already. But hell, you start with a national grievance because they're not even adhering to the terms of the article, dispute resolution process memorandum. So I think we should have filed a national grievance probably 3-4 years ago. I've been bringing this issue up for a long time. I don't want to make any promises on the grievance procedure because I think we are in a significant hole that I'm not sure exactly how we're supposed to climb out of. There's a lot of places where you have such a backlog of grievances that it's just physically impossible to get resolution on all of them because there's so many. We've really dug ourselves into a deep hole. To me, it's negligent on part of the president. And I've been ringing the bell for at least all of the time that he's been the president and even prior to that when Fred Rolando was the president. And the problem is that the post office doesn't really care about the grievance procedure because they did whatever they wanted to do. And it's on us to care about the grievance procedure and to negotiate terms that force the postal service to deal with us in the grievance process because left to their own devices, they just would ignore the grievances and let them move through the process and let them be delayed. And that's exactly what they've been doing at a higher and higher clip. And that's what the problem is. I think you got to revamp the whole system. I think that, you have two things at play. One is that the Postal Service is obviously not complying with the terms the way they currently are. And so I would go to them and say, what would work for you guys? we're going to have a grievance procedure. We're not going to let you off the hook. We're not going to let you violate the terms of the contract at will. You're going to have to adhere to the contract, but tell me a procedure that might work better for your managers, because obviously the procedure we have in place right now does not work for your managers. So try to get them to the table to work on something. Obviously you got to show them all the money that they're wasting, all the ill will. It's a lot of bad results when you have a grievance procedure that doesn't work. So hopefully get them to the table to try to work out a new procedure. But the other thing I was going to say is, the modern era, people don't read as much. There's just not, we shouldn't expect our letter carriers that have become union stewards to be like attorneys, and part of the process has gotten, you have these 1,000-page case files, and you know what I mean? Like, I think you need to modernize the whole thing. I think it has to be a grievance procedure that works for both sides, and I think it can be modernized maybe in some ways. I mean, you can have immediate hearings over Zoom. You can have different things that would be quicker to get you resolution and be more efficient and things like that. So I would really be looking at revamping the grievance procedure. But we could start with trying to enforce the terms, and enforcing the terms would be starting with a national grievance, which should have been filed. If we thought the National Labor Relations Board would help, we could try and go that route. I'm not so sure that would be helpful, especially with the current, administration out there in Washington. So.
Next part of the podcast, we're going to ask you some rapid fire, either multiple choice or fill in the blank, and it's not going to be a very long segment, but just to get to know you personally. So don't forget, this is a official interview, so you got to be truthful and forthcoming about your answer.
What L provision is that?
I thought that was 66516. No, I'm just joking.
I think that's right.
Yeah, something like that.
665 something.
Yeah, but so yeah, I'm from the standpoint of a manager, they wouldn't know anyway. So that's the role I'm trying to play. But so here it goes. Do you carry your satchel across, or do you carry it on one shoulder?
One shoulder. I used to carry it across, but they said it's not safe, so I stopped doing it.
Do you prefer carrying in the winter or the summer?
Summer. I don't care about the heat.
McDonald's or Burger King?
I like the McDonald's breakfast. That's it. I don't deal with either after that.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Neither.
Okay. Tupac or Biggie?
Tupac.
What's your favorite football team?
No Bears. I haven't watched a lot of football at all, so probably none of them. But
okay. What pizza do you like the best?
I like the thin crust pizza. I don't like all that big ass cheese. I mean, once in a while we eat that, but
what about the toppings?
Regular Chicago style thin crust, or that New York pizza. I do like New York pizza. I don't know why.
What kind of toppings though?
Normally I put like sausage, peppers, and mushrooms or something like that.
Last question is there anything else you would like to add?
Man, this isn't the best year of the interview.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to add one thing here, and that is that we've spent a lot of time on the platform. The original platform that I came out with maybe like a year ago, I thought was decent, but we've improved upon it. And you go around the country, you hear from different people, you get feedback, things develop, things change, you get different ideas out there. So we've been kind of updating and modernizing the platform, and I'll continue to do that. But I encourage every letter carrier, sometime between now and the time we're going to make our choice, to check it out and give us some feedback on it, So everything is available on the website. I mentioned the website, careforprez.org, CAREF, the number 4, PREZ.org. You go in there, find out whatever you want to know about the campaign, get tons of information. You can interact with the campaign. You can find the campaign on any one of the social media platforms by putting in Care for Prez, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. If you want to send an email to the campaign, it's careforprez@gmail.com. And, just trying to be as accessible as I can. I have been going around the country, going to different branches, different events. If you guys want me to come out to an event or a branch meeting that you have, so that the members can, look me in the eye, get to know me. I think it's very important. You're going to vote for someone for president. Get to know that person. Ask that person as many questions as you think you need to ask them. We're going to really do a good job this time of vetting all the candidates, myself included. And so I put myself out there to you guys, the members of the union, to see what you guys think. For you guys to look at me and look me in the eye, ask me the questions that you want to ask me, and be prepared when we go to vote next year.
Okay, that concludes your investigative interview. Now, one question off the record before we let you go back to your route, or back to being president, if that's your...
I don't trust them off the record questions when you're in the IR,
Yeah,
man.
well, I'm just going to let you know, this is not going to be subject to disciplinary action, but right. So you can answer freely, even though you're on a podcast right now. But who is your favorite podcaster? Postal podcasting.
That's a good question. I will, who's my favorite podcaster? I really enjoyed Corey's podcast over the years.
Okay.
These days, I do listen to Corey's podcast still. I'm one of the few that, stick with him, but it's just too damn long, and I'm not on the route most days, so it's like, how do you give 2 hours of your time? And he repeats himself so much, but I like to hear his views as a podcast. I like Alan Gigak's podcast a lot. He's very open and gives out a lot of information. Yours is a little bit more like technical or whatever, which I enjoy, but a lot of that stuff I kind of know a little bit because I'm involved in grievances so much, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's probably not as impactful for me, but there's so many. I probably don't know of half the damn podcasts out there. The Next Generation Letter Carriers, they do good with the different formats and, that kind of thing. We even mentioned I have a show now, Mike Drop Mondays. We have our own podcast that comes out.
Yeah.
Which I forgot to mention. You guys can listen to that. It's available on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the podcast formats. We have fun making the show, so,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed, and, say what you want. I really enjoyed this latest episode of Brian Renfro's podcast. He changed the name to Fight Like Hell, which is completely unnecessary and is a misnomer. But the last episode he put out, I thought was chock full of information. I thought he answered the questions that were posed of him. I thought he gave thoughtful answers. I'm not saying I agree with everything, but I thought it was a nice podcast. I appreciated that one. So. Well, I like Lou's podcast. Remember Lou? I don't know if he's out of podcast, but he had some nice hitters there.
Yeah, it's true.
He had some nice stuff.
Well, hey, it was good having you as a guest, and I appreciate you coming here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. So,
good luck to you in your election, man. You're running for the vice president at your branch?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, brother. Good luck, man.
Well, there you have it. One successful interview down. Now you can listen to the other one and make your choice. Listen closely because it's going to be your choice this year. I'm also going to do one surprise thing. Maybe I'll extend this to whoever's running on the establishment's ticket. If anyone has access to Brian Renfro or whoever's actually going to run this year, let them know. They can come on the podcast too, answer the same questions, because I'll give them the same respect, give them the floor to speak on, and then everyone can make their own informed decision. Hopefully you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.
Out to the Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now. The Grievous Genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Brothers and sisters, this guy is good, man. He's fucking good.
And my boy Joshua, he killed it. Man, he's lockstep right now. He's killing it.
You would think this guy is